every day as I work with schools and engage with them, I'm learning new things about how schools are disrupting the landscape on their own, and that's the beauty of it. I think that's the fun part about it. Um, what I want to do is take about, probably I'm hoping only about 15-20 minutes, maybe less, to just go through a few things with you to share with you, so that then after that we can have a little conversation. Um, I hope we can have a conversation. Let's see how that goes. I thought about multiple things I wanted to talk about. I've always been interested in the future. I've been in the world field of ed tech for almost 35 years, and in that time period, um, I've always liked to see what technologies and what's coming 10 years down the road, and then to see how sticky that stuff was going to be, to see if it's going to have an impact in education, and then work backwards from that time period to see how the space or the place where I was at, whichever school I was at, how can that start to accept and adopt that specific technology. And that allowed me to experiment and explore multiple pieces of technology, and also in many ways take on multiple roles and perspectives around change. So for today's talk, I thought about two aspects. One was, should I talk more about change and how you bring about massive change in a short period of time, or should I talk about the future and forecasts and trends and seeing what is being said by people who are a lot wiser than us in those different spaces, so that we can learn from them and see how that could impact the admissions space. I'm assuming that all of you are from the admission space, and so what I share today, as you hear it, as you um, look at it from the perspective of just interest, thing that you want to watch out and look out for the change that's coming, and be an observer, be a witness to that change as it unfolds in the coming years, in the next 5 to 10 years. I'll be talking about the next 5 to 10 years. Um, the other stance you can also take, and I would urge you to take, is the markets that you are working with, right? Which is where your clientele is coming from, where your students are coming from, are going to shift. Those markets are going to shift. So that's like a given, that's a reality. And as it shifts, you might want to take some of these trends and shifts and see what are the other kinds of markets you can reach out to. Who can be your next group of students and the next group of parents? Where are they going to be coming from? What markets are they going to come? So your whole marketing and your outreach could be shifting and should be shifting in the next 5 to 10 years. So just listen to what I'm saying from that lens, both from the lens of, you could actually observe this change over a period of time and see how a lot of these things become real and morph and evolve. Remember, these are shifts and trends, and sometimes trends can get fast forwarded or can get slowed down, one of the two. Most of the trends I'll be talking about today are the fast forward ones, not the slow down ones. Okay. So let me just quickly share my screen. What am I sharing? Wait a moment. Where is my? 1 second. Can you guys see it?
Yep.
Are you able to see it?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, great. All right. So what I'll share with you is almost like there is no one big jigsaw puzzle. It's multiple puzzles put together in one space called our world in which we live. We come from different backgrounds, we come from different spaces, and as we look at these pieces of the puzzle, you'll have to start thinking about how they fit into the country or the city that you are in, where you're living. Years back, this gentleman called Klaus Schwab made a statement. This is in 2017 or 2018, one of the two. He said, "We stand on the brink of a technological revolution that will fundamentally alter the way we live, we work, and relate to one another in its scale, scope, and complexity. The transformation would be unlike anything humankind has experienced before." And this he said in 2017 when he published this book called The Fourth Industrial Revolution. If you haven't read it, it might be worthwhile taking a look at the book. Several of the pieces in the book have already started to come alive. And then in 2018, he wrote another book called Shaping the Future of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, because these two books, or more like Fourth Industrial Revolution, has pretty much shaped all of what's happening as changes in the world in the last 5 years. I'm going to share with you some hard trends. These are not like soft trends that may happen. These are hard. There will be a disruptive impact across industries with technology. AI in particular will have a very deep and disruptive impact. I was telling David that this evening, just before this call, I was listening to New York Times was having its first DealBook virtual summit, and Masayoshi Son, who is the founder of SoftBank, was one of the first speakers, and he was getting interviewed, and he talked about how AI will disrupt and do all of the routine work, and give us as humans time to actually do things that are more human, which then makes us start to think about, well, what would schools look like if AI was disruptive there? This is not a talk about that, but one day maybe we can talk about how that whole business is going to get disrupted by AI. So automation will start replacing routine tasks and services, and that's already happening, but it's opening the door for a whole bunch of other industries that are going to come into being. There's a shift in demographics that is happening, which is around age shift, there's a gender shift, and there's an ethnicity shift. And I'll see if we have time today. We'll talk a little more about that. There's a shift in power and influence, and it's this. So are you all familiar with BRICS? BRICS is it's an economic group that was formed, oh goodness, must be about a decade back. It's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Those were the three countries that, those were the 5 countries that came together to form the BRICS organization. It's a partnership. That has now evolved. BRICS actually even exists. In fact, right now, there's a BRICS conference happening where all the leaders of the 5 countries are communicating with each other and over the next day or two. It's now shifted to RCEP, which is the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which is made up of China, Japan, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, and all of the Southeast Asia countries. It's the largest regional bloc in the world. And in fact, the signing of that bloc was done today. So as of today, this bloc has come into existence. It's a regional partnership, but it's really huge. It's the largest bloc, like I said, and it's going to dramatically change how business and economics work in the future. Everybody for the last decade and a half have been talking about a shift towards the east. You will actually start to see the massive shift now, because now it's formulated. This is one beginning of an example of a shift. And then there's a shifting geography of population change, which I'll share more about with you soon. A couple of other things. There's a loss of trust in businesses generally globally. You're seeing that in the many times that businesses are brought to be accountable for their practices, and the fact that a lot of their structures and practices are under scrutiny. There's the pressure on corporations now is to improve their performance on environment, social, and governance issues. Things like diversity, things like gender pay equity, things like the way they're addressing climate change within companies. And this has now become even more of a pressure on pretty much any corporate, any company in the world. So that's a massive shift that's going to start impacting all of us in good ways, in many ways. The other is that we all know about the gig workers, right? Uber is an example of a gig company that's run by gig workers. Then you've got Lyft, you've got Airbnb, you've got all of these different companies, but you also have individuals that now work on different projects. They work collaboratively, they work informally. I know of a lot of friends who are graphic designers who don't work for a company. They work on projects, right? So there's a company, I'll give you an example. It's called 99designs.com. So if you ever get a chance, take a look at it. If I want to get a flyer made, I don't today have to go find a graphic designer. I actually go to 99 Designs and I put in a project and I say I want this to be these specific colors. I want you to use this logo. I want you to use this text, etc. And within up to anywhere between 3 to 7 days, I actually get probably 50 to 60, 70 different designs from umpteen graphic designers that want to take on the project. The amount of money I pay is a lot less than I would pay my graphic designer, but the quality of work that I get is tremendous. So all of my design work, even our company's logo, was done through a company called Logo Tournament. And that was a company I heard about like almost 10, 15 years back when Scott Klosowski, who's a futurist, actually showed me this company. He says, have you ever tried Logo Tournament? We were at that time designing some logos internally. And I said, that's a little bizarre. How can I just go online and ask for something like that? He says, try it. And I've become a big fan of something like that because guess what? I get the best talent. I get to see a diverse range of opportunities. And at the end of it, the work belongs to me because if I pay for it, I get the official paperwork which says the copyright and everything belongs to me. So it's transferred over and I get it in multiple formats. So the whole nature of work in the world is shifting. So think about that from, design departments that organizations and companies and schools have that have actually pared that down. You don't need that anymore. Here's the piece that I want you to take a quick look at. These are the mature industries. This is how we've known the industries all this while. ICT was one of the big ones. Energy and power were the big industries way back in the 70s, 80s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Metals and mining, engineering and construction, aerospace and defense, electronics, oil and gas, automobile. Some will still remain. There's pharma as well. So some of these will be around. But these are a whole bunch of other emerging industries that we need to start looking at. And this is where, you should start thinking about in your cities, where are these? This is where your next generation of kids are going to come from. Virtual commerce businesses, big data companies and corporations. 3D printing is going to become very, very powerful. Cloud computing is anyway becoming powerful. Cybersecurity is another one. Alternate energies, solar and alternate forms of energy. Waste management, which is a major part of the sustainable goals of the UN. But it's also a business. It's a massive business now. Wellness industry, pharma and healthcare is morphing into wellness. So keep this in mind, because these particular industries will be something that you want to watch for. This will happen across every country in the world. This will not be limited to only a few countries. This will happen everywhere. So you want to watch out for, and just be on the lookout for, I've known about virtual commerce for such a long time, and waste management, and I've been on the lookout for, which countries are going to become really big in India, which ones are really going to go global. I've been watching a lot of the 3D printing companies and seeing how those are going from small 3D printing scanners. Not sure whether they can become really big in the next year or two, but those are emerging industries. And this is all a 5 to 10 year forecast that I'm giving you. Right? Some of these, you'll start to see the signals. If you watch very carefully over a period of time, you'll hear the signals. You'll see these come alive. These are trends. Materials, food, pharma, healthcare, those are also your big, giant corporations that used to exist in the past. Okay. All right. One of the biggest ones, the biggest change in the world is going to be around population. Okay. Here are the population change. The population is going to grow, but we are also going to be living longer. So longevity is going to become its own industry. A child that's born next year will live 6 months longer than one born today. So if you look at lifespans, those are increasing tremendously. Years back, I used to read about how Japan had people living for 100 years. There's certain places in Japan where that happens, and so there were studies done as to why that was happening. And now this is just the way things are today. Everywhere in the world, everybody is looking to live longer because of the quality of life has changed. Age 65 and above is the fastest growing population, and it's going to have a huge impact on the labor market. It's going to have a massive impact on healthcare and social protection policies that governments have. It will also impact how companies and corporates work. All right, so keep that in mind as you look at this. There are going to be population droughts in certain parts of the world. Japan is one Japan's actually undergoing it right now. They need 1 million additional nurses to take care of their elderly because they don't have enough of a population. They've had a major population decline over the years. Europe is going to face a massive loss of labor. This is the data from the UN, and this is a good link to go to if you want more information about it. This entire website there's tons of data. You can create your own little maps. You can pull down data and create your own little charts. It's a fun one to give to download and work with. It's a UN organization that's actually put together this. So the data actually highlights these specific countries where you're going to see an inflow of migrants that will hopefully offset some of the population losses. because migrants typically come in low-skill jobs or in very high-skill jobs. So they end up meeting a specific need. So some of the losses that you'll have around labor in these countries will be offset with the migration or the immigration shifts. Irrespective of what our personal policies might be or beliefs might be about immigration, the bottom line is this is going to happen and is already in process. I want you to look at this chart for a minute. This is taken from it's taken from the UN data, but it's fascinating. So if you look at the bottom part, which is the line, the big black arrow, and it points to 2030 in 10 years' time. Look at where all the populations, the graphs and the lines are going. So it's starting to flatten out in South Asia. I know that from in India, we're already noticing that there is a flattening, and slowly over the next 10 to 15 years, it'll start to decline. See how it's dropped for Europe. See how it's dropped for US. Western Asia is kind of flattening out soon. It's still rising, but it'll start to flatten out by 2030. But see the continent that's growing the fastest, right? It's Africa, and that continent actually is large enough to have Europe, India, which is really tiny, US, China, all part of it, all become subsumed in it, and that's how large this continent is. And so the massive growth in population is really going to be in Africa. And that's going to be very interesting to watch. So you can expect massive industries and businesses to grow in Africa. And I'll talk a little bit about Africa shortly, because this will be businesses that will have footprint all over the world. And so that is another one to watch for. Anyway, I'll come to that. So this is a picture of Lagos. All right, so the biggest growth will happen with Africa. It'll have the demographic dividend in 10 years from now. It already has it. African agriculture is $1 trillion sector, will be $1 trillion sector by 2030. I know our company actually worked with, we helped a company in South Africa set up the first ever online agriculture university about a year back. So we started in 2018 working for them to start designing an online agriculture university, because agriculture is the future for Africa. It is the massive potential that it has. So that company is actually now doing very well. We were there in the initial stages to have them set up. And they expect this to actually go across these, build partnerships with everybody, every nation almost within Africa. So something to kind of watch very closely. Here's an example I'll give you about mobile communication. So everybody might think, it's going to take decades for Africa to catch up with the technology. Actually, no, they're the fastest growing continent in terms of use of technology. Kenya, this is pre-COVID times. Kenya was a world leader in mobile payments. This is pre-COVID. Now, post-COVID, of course, a whole bunch of us have become a leader in mobile payments, but not a major leader. But that's how fast Africa is growing. It'll be worthwhile to kind of watch the growth of the middle class. The growth of the middle class is of any country is always an indication of how their economy will grow. All right. So when you think about Nigeria, so I'll give you an example of Nigeria. Nigeria is about 200 million is their population, approximately 200 million. About 10% of that population today is their middle class. That's how fast it's grown. And every year, they're adding 1.5 million people into the middle class of that country. That's just Nigeria, right? And Nigeria, Egypt, South Africa, Kenya are the four largest economies in Africa that are worth a watch. So you might want to take a note of that. All right, and then let's go to the healthcare. So healthcare, there's a shift away from emergency care, is what I call it, to wellness care, to make sure we're taking care of our lives, which will impact the entire spectrum of care. So there's a new industry that's going to come around, which is going to be called the care industry. uh, and that's where it taps into what makes us human, which is really our empathy, our compassion. These are the skills, that things that robots can't do, right? So you don't need robots to be able to do this work. And that's why this is going to require a lot of universities, a lot of education organizations that are going to have to start setting up the pathways to the care industry. And that's going to be the growth in the next 10 years will be there. Nursing is going to become huge. Um, Nurses, doctors, and specialists are going to be required a lot more, especially because of COVID. The highlight on healthcare has become huge. People have become more conscious about their health. I don't think any of us really cared too much about all aspects about ourselves physically as much as we are taking care of ourselves now. Um, and so our need for more doctors and specialists will increase, even though digital medicine and telemedicine will continue to grow. A lot of ancillary businesses which are related to healthcare will also grow. So as you're watching this, just think about, in the city or the space that you are in, where is this and where is this likely to grow? Because your next generation of students will be coming from there in your school. That's where your market outreach has to go there. Um, Scanners and imaging equipment are going to become big. Philips, for example, the light bulb, and that's why I put that example. It's a great example. The light bulb and the TV people, Philips. Today, 2/3 of their revenue comes from scanners and imaging equipment. That's a huge, so that gives you an indication of how much a corporation like Philips has transformed. Digital medicine, shift to alternative medicine, lifestyle changes, those are going to become huge part of the healthcare industry. Uh, the industry as we traditionally know it will shift in this direction. Longevity is going to be an industry because we will be looking at ways to tap into another 50-year careers, right? You're not looking at people working for only 20 years or 30 years, a minimum of 50 years. So gray is the new black. These are 100-year lives that we're going to be living. And so you're actually now not going to be planning for 60-year retirements or 65 years, but actually starting to see what are other things that we could be leveraging and doing. What are ways in which we are contributing and impacting societies? I know of so many people who are now starting to set up, after 60, 65, starting to set up their own farms and organic farms and starting to run small businesses out of those. So that's a massive movement here in India that we're starting to notice that's happening. Um, Again, these are tech savvy senior citizens, unlike in the past when you said you studied for a certain period of your time and then you worked for a certain period of time and then you rested the rest of the period of your life, whatever was left after 60. Now it's like, no, we're pretty tech savvy senior citizens that we find. It's also the fastest growing market segment. for a good solid period of, I think, 5 to 7 years, the advertising industry, as well as the whole corporations, never paid attention to anyone except the millennials. And then they suddenly realized the millennials might be able to pay attention to some of the stuff, but the money really sits with the senior citizens. So now all their advertising is starting to get balanced between the millennial advertising as well as the senior citizen advertising. So they're now advertising to both markets. So that's something to keep in mind, because the affluence of this group is unprecedented. There has never in the history of the world ever have been that time period when things are very different with the senior citizens. Extended care, the notion of retiring is irrelevant today. So it's a question of, what am I going to do for the X number of years rather than what am I going to do after retirement. In fact, companies are having to now quickly think and rethink what their retirement policy, or what the word is going to be, what's the language they're going to use in order to shift that. So it's going to be very fascinating to see how schools do that shift, right? That's the part I'm looking forward to seeing. That's a very good indicator of how agile a school is to reflect what's happening in society. Because this is happening in society. This is not something I'm predicting in the next few years. This I've been predicting for the last 5 years. And now it's the point where this is happening already. You don't have to wait too long for this. Again, flexible working practices and policies are emerging. Corporates are already doing this. They're already looking at that in ways in which they can make sure that they can tap into the experience, the wisdom of the senior citizens while they manage change at a different end, or especially with new products, etc., that they're bringing in. All right, my favorite, rise of the robots. Those are coming. Those are already here. But the fun part will be just watching how this opens up in the next 5 to 10 years. Yes, automation is one part. It just takes care of routine work, which is going to happen, which is happening already. So we all know about that. But then there's also, this is where the personal robotics is going to be huge. So start thinking about, or keep a lookout for companies in your cities or your countries where you are that are in the robotics business and that are starting out as robotics businesses. Because that's what's going to grow tremendously. This is going to be huge, and it's not going to be limited to only a few countries. Like I said, this is a global phenomenon. There are some countries that are leading the way right now, but give it another 5 to 10 years. I'm thinking of getting one of those floor robots that come and do my floor cleaning, so I don't have to sit and get my maid to come in, or I don't have to start and brooming and mopping and doing all of that stuff. So I was actually studying one of those robots very carefully to say, should I invest in it? And never know, in the next couple of weeks or so, I might get fed up of something and I might just buy it. It's very cheap. It's about I think it cost me about $150 to get me that floor robot where I can program it to actually to clean the floor. And there's one that actually does the mopping as well. Like, okay, that's great, super, saves me a lot of time. So again, the personal robots with the home will be one part of it, and that's your household care stuff. Companionship. Japan has started looking at these for, if you hear about the robot dogs, I mean, they sound funny. They're really hilarious, but you know what? It's there. It's a market. Robots as personal assistants. That's a growing market as well. And then in Japan, they're experimenting with human support robots. Because of the population decline, the massive population decline, and like I mentioned, the additional 1 million nurses that they need today, they are getting replaced with robots. And part of the reason is that they haven't had a population increase to be able to balance this out. So this is something to look out for. There's a lot going to happen in pretty much every country with this. Um, Space. Aerospace is an old world mature industry, but today it's going to become more and more agile. Every country wants a piece of the moon and the Mars, and so they are going to want their own satellites and their own people in the space business. So look out for where the aerospace industries are, where are the students are likely to come from this area as well. Parents are going to be working here. There's going to be a lot more engineers, a lot more, if this was a, a place where we were talking about the pathways for students, I would say schools should start looking at creating engineering pathways around aerospace or some kind of a beginner's pathway around aerospace for their students. Um, Okay, so that's one. The other one is the energy sector. Like I mentioned that before as well. That there should be a shift to solar and alternates. Oil and gas is going to decline. Oil, the OPEC countries just met. I think this week, was it yesterday? I think they were struggling to find out what to do because the price of oil is dropping, and they are not being able to pump it as much because of COVID. Not enough usage is happening, which in turn will hopefully start pushing prices even further down and move things around. Mobility, autonomous transport. This is becoming real and very fast. This is growing extremely fast. So every city, every country is going to be looking at this very closely. Um, some faster than others, but it's coming. Electric is, of course, the future. Um, I think Tesla is already in China. I know Tesla is scheduled for India soon, but I also know that he is planning to slowly expand out into Africa, etc. So, um, yeah. So keep a watch out on this one because this has potential for real growth. The other one that has potential is Hyperloop. Hyperloop did their experiment last week. Virgin did Virgin Hyperloop last week, and it was a very successful test run that happened. Um, so that will cause some disruption when it comes to the um, air transport industry, aviation industry, because the impact on the environment from airplanes is really high, and people have become aware of it and very conscious of it. We don't know yet the full impact of Hyperloop, but we do know the impact in terms of time, that it does save a lot of time. So again, keep a watch on these. This is likely to grow in the next 5 years. I know India has a Hyperloop from Ahmedabad to Mumbai. So in the next 3 years, we'll probably have a Hyperloop here. So in the next 5 to 7 years, you should be seeing several of these being built across the globe. Um, so watch for that. Sustainable cities are interesting. It's something we've talked about everywhere. Everything you open, you hear about sustainable cities. But now the fun part is which are the cities that are going to become the smart cities of the world. Circular economy. If for those of you, do you know what a circular economy is, right? It's where, all right. So what circular economy does is where you take products and materials and you make sure you keep circulating it in a high value state of use through a supply chain as long as possible, so that you're not just so if you had a shirt, you don't just wear it out and throw it away because you're not using it anymore. So instead, what you do, you when you're ready to throw it out, you give it to another a group that actually takes care of making it almost new and circulating it back in the economy, so that other people can buy it. And this is different from um, where you had a hand-me-down that you gave to somebody, right? So because the quality of this would be a lot better than a hand-me-down. What it does is it eliminates the wastage that happens on the planet. It eliminates the concept of the industrial model, which was let's take something, let's make it, and let's waste it, which is what it was. It was called the take, make, waste industrial model. That's what we typically call it. In the circular economy, you're eliminating the waste part, and that's the important piece. So most countries are now starting to actually try and focus on building a circular economy. So every country is actually looking at that a lot more intensively. So just something to think about. If you talk to economists, that's the area that they're focusing on. Waste management is a critical piece of this. Another part about sustainable cities is the water management. We haven't yet started to see the water wars, but they're coming, and they're coming fairly quickly. This is where there's global water shortages that will happen. So water management is going to become an important part of it. Smart cities that take care of their infrastructure, smart buildings, smart energy. There are only some cities in the world between now and the next 5 to 10 years that will be called smart cities. And over a period of time, those will become the model cities. Some are going to be from the ground up that are going to be built up as smart cities. Some are going to be current cities that are going to get transformed into smart cities. So those become the playground or the prototypes before all cities move in that direction. I want to show you this map this is from Forbes Smart City Index. It's their list. It's the Innovation City Index, and you can see the number of cities that are. There are about 26 global cities that will be smart cities in 2025. 50% of this will be in Europe or in North America. The others are in Southeast Asia or China. All right, so that's, and this is from, like I said, the Forbes Smart City list. This is another which this is from the Siemens Green Index. These are the list of cities that are going to be called the eco cities in the future. 2025 is this deadline for 2025. Some of these are starting to go in that direction. If you look at Hong Kong, Nanjing, Jakarta, Surabaya, etc. So these are on the plan to move in that direction. So this is something to think about. This is again beyond BRICS, which I mentioned earlier. These are game changer countries. This is where high GDP growth will happen. This is from the International Monetary Fund, this particular data. Be on the lookout for businesses coming from Thailand, from Vietnam, from Philippines or Indonesia in the next 5 to 7 years. Nigeria, I had mentioned, South Africa, Egypt, Mexico, Poland, Turkey. This is where they'll have high GDP growth. This is where the businesses are going to grow rapidly.